Thank you for tuning in to the Andrew Tate Show by GSMC Sports. I am your co-host, Sarah. Joining me, as always, is Tate, and we have a great show planned for you today. We will be talking about why Paul George left the Clippers, Steph Curry's feelings about Klay Thompson's departure, Stephen A. Smith's potential departure from ESPN, Will Smith's chances of his Oscar ban being lifted, and stick around for segment 5 when we'll be talking about the Paris Olympics trying to be the greenest Olympics ever, but encountering some snags. As we get started, I do want to remind you to like and follow the show. That really does help us out. As we get started, a reminder that you can go to gsmcpodcast.net and leave a tip or a donation. That is a really good way to help out not only the show, but the entire network. If you want to leave a question or a comment at that time, that's going to come up at the top of our list, ensuring that we see it. We do get a lot of questions and comments. So if you go to gsmcpodcast.net, you can leave a question or comment. You can leave a tip or a donation. Thank you, as always, for any support that you give. Tate, hello.
Hello, Miss Sarah. Look like, okay, we're out for a little bit, for a little sabbatical, and you've got how the system work look like.
Just getting my muscle memory back.
I looked at what you're about to push. I'm like, oh no, that's not right.
We're making it work.
All right.
We are making it work.
That is just funny there.
Why don't we go ahead and jump into it?
But are you happy to be back? We've been gone for a few weeks.
We have been gone for a few weeks. And yes, I was going to say it's nice to be hanging out with you again. I was kind of smiling during my intro because there's a lot of departures and leavings and possible leavings and maybe coming backs in our stories for today. So
Paul George departs. Klay Thompson departs. Stephen A. Smith could depart.
Will Smith banned from the Oscars. That's a departure of a kind.
Well, I was just gonna say he departed that hand from Chris Rock. That was a long time ago. That's some time ago. But we may have an arrival there, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but let's go ahead and start with our first story of the day, and this one is about Paul George and his departure from the Clippers. He recently revealed on his Podcast P with Paul George, that he never intended to leave Los Angeles, but felt disrespected by the Clippers' initial contract offer. George, who has since signed a 4-year, $212 million max deal with the Philadelphia 76ers, was open to staying with the Clippers for a 3-year, $150 million extension, similar to what Kawhi Leonard received, but with a no-trade clause. However, the Clippers were unwilling to meet these terms. George explained that the Clippers' first offer was a 2-year, $60 million deal, which he found unacceptable. Despite his desire to stay in LA and win a championship there, the negotiations were challenging. The Clippers cited the new collective bargaining agreement constraints as a reason for their conservative approach to roster building and salary offers. The situation became even more complex when the Clippers secured Leonard's 3-year, $150 million extension, prompting George to request the same. Despite his willingness to match Leonard's terms, including taking less than the max contract, the Clippers only marginally increased their offer to around $44 to $45 million per year. This led George to feel undervalued, especially after learning about Leonard's contract. The Clippers management stated that they wanted to retain their star players, including George, Leonard, and James Harden, while navigating the restrictive new CBA. However, negotiations with George did not progress significantly, leading to a significant gap in their offers and expectations. George detailed how these discussions took place before the All-Star break and how he chose to pause negotiations to avoid affecting his performance. Eventually, as free agency loomed, the Clippers were willing to offer George a deal similar to Leonard's, but without the no-trade clause. George then asked for a 4-year, $212 million deal to ensure security in case of a future trade. Before making his final decision, George consulted Leonard, who supported his choice to move to Philadelphia. Despite their close relationship and shared goals, the pair's tenure with the Clippers was marred by injuries, limiting their success to just one Western Conference Finals appearance in 5 seasons. George expressed his disappointment but acknowledged the business aspect of the sport, ultimately deciding it was time to move on. George concluded by expressing his appreciation for the Clippers owners Steve Ballmer and President Lawrence Frank, but admitted that returning under the circumstances wouldn't have felt right. All right, Tate, I know you have thoughts.
Okay, first, I think when all this went down, initially, I was a little surprised. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that the Clippers let him slip through their fingers. But as I listen to this more and more, I'm realizing I don't know if the Clippers really wanted him.
Mm-hmm. Say more.
He is clearly their Kawhi Leonard is their 1A. He's their 1B. The Clippers were going to go as far as Kawhi Leonard and Paul George took them. You know, he was Batman. Kawhi Leonard's Batman. He's Robin. I guess that makes James Harden Batgirl. I don't know what it makes James Harden, but those were the two stars. And I start thinking about nothing like Paul George talks about feeling disrespected. And sometimes I hear players, NFL and NBA players, talk about feeling disrespected by the millions of dollars that are offered them. And you're kind of taken back like, come on, dude, you know. But in this particular case, I agree with Paul George. If you get to the point where it's your time for renewing your contract and you're eligible for $212 million, your team knows you're eligible for $212 million. And, you know, they know that you're going to be a desired piece out on free agency. And you only offer them $60 million is nuts. I would have, the 60 million, I would have looked at them like, wait a minute, are you serious? Like, what do you mean 60 million? If they just came out, and I don't understand why, if they really wanted them to be together and to stay on the Clippers, for him, they decided to hold off on negotiating with him. And then they took care of Kawhi Leonard, who was eligible for that same amount of money. But Kawhi Leonard took a less year, and I think about $8-9 million left. So $150 million is what he signed. Paul George said he would have taken that. My question to the Clippers or anyone else is, if I have my two superstars and their contracts are both coming up due at the same time, and I want them to take less years, I don't understand why they didn't bring them into the meeting together and be like, listen, we really want you two to stay together. We want you to be Clippers for life. We have this problem with the new CBA and the second apron. Can we work together to find a happy medium that both of you guys will be happy? That's what a good organization will do. A good organization doesn't say, hey, we really want Kawhi Leonard, so 150 for you, and then 60 million for Paul George. I would have felt some kind of way. Then for George to come back to them and say, once he learned what Kawhi Leonard got, to come to them and say, listen, I'm willing to forgo the $212 million. I want to stay in Los Angeles. I'm willing to take the exact same deal that Kawhi Leonard has, but I want a no trade clause. Because if I'm going to take, 65, 60, $62 million less than I'm eligible to get, I don't want to be traded away. Kind of the way Blake Griffin did. And the reason why I say that is Blake Griffin, they told him how they wanted him to be a Clipper for life and all this. And Blake Griffin decided to sign with the Clippers. He was their franchise player. He decided to do a team-friendly deal. He signed that deal. It was 4 to 6 months later, they shipped him off. Knowing that history, why, if I'm Paul George, knowing that history, I'm not taking less unless I do get that no trade clause. That's the one thing that protects me from you doing me the way Paul George is. I mean, not Paul George, but Blake Griffin. I don't think anything that Paul George requested was like extreme, out of the ordinary, unprecedented. There was a history there. There was some negotiations that wasn't done really in good faith. When you're offering a guy that's due $212 million and you say we'll give you 60, take your paycheck and cut it by 70%. And you tell your boss, hey, I really want to stay there. And they're like, yeah, we'll bring you back, but we're going to cut your check by 70%. You wouldn't be happy. So, and honestly, I feel like this move, because of this, the hard feelings that came on with this, it was the right move for Paul George to leave. But it also ended, in my opinion, any shot of the Clippers getting a championship. Second thing is, when I sit there and I say, I want to go to Los Angeles, and you look at what the Lakers did for Kobe at the end of his career, making sure he was taken care of with his last big contract. LeBron, 40 years old, and what the Lakers have just done with LeBron. The Lakers have a history of taking care of their own people. And you look at the Clippers, what they did to Blake Griffin, and now what is coming out with Paul George. If you're a free agent, do you really, which one, and you want to go to Los Angeles, I think the Lakers are a much better option. I think it really does hurt them. What do you think, Sarah?
I think there's always about 10 sides to every story, and we're never going to get more than I'm sure there's a ton of conversations that go on, but from an outsider looking in, that's just as a person that wouldn't know how to negotiate myself in any sports. Right? I don't have any experience, but I would look at this and say, I would not take it. I would not encourage another person to take it. I mean, I feel the disrespect.
Yeah, when you're talking about, I'm eligible for $212 million and they only offer you 60. That makes it so that I don't know if I really, I don't know if they really value me. Then to turn around and then they give Kawhi Leonard a contract. You want to take the same deal, but you want a no trade clause because you're taking such a big pay cut and they're still not willing to do it. Oh no, and you got the Philadelphia 76ers and other teams like, listen, we are ready to give you all 4 years. We're not shortchanging you on the years. We're going to give you the maximum dollars and the maximum years. And you have a company over here, another, your current organization saying, we don't want to give you the max years. We don't want to give you the max money. We don't even want to make you equal to your cohort and make sure you guys are on the same playing field, same pay field. They're saying, no, no, no. That is 3 strikes. Paul George is out. Only bad thing I see is it's going to be weird. Paul George, I think he's going to be number 8 now. So no more PG-13. That's his whole brand. And that's a weird one that he's going to lose the PG-13. He's going to be PG-8.
That sounds more like a Star Wars.
It sounds like it sounds like a golf tournament, a golf organization instead of PGA to PG-8. So
I'm sure they can make some clever play on words.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. But yeah, that's
13 is a good one. That is clever.
Still, the greatest one was Andrei Kirilenko from Russia, AK-47. That's the best nickname ever.
It's a good note to go to our first break on. So we are going to take that first break. When we come back, we'll be talking about Klay Thompson's departure and Steph Curry's feelings about that departure. You are tuned into the Andrew Tate Show by GSMC Sports, and we will be right back.